What's going on everybody, my name is Rico, welcome back to my channel. For those of you that are new here, my channel is about vlogs, series and tutorials. And in this episode I'm going to tell you something about Darktable 3.0. Right, so Darktable 3.0 came out, it's a pre-release. And I'm going to show you guys how to download it, where you can find it. And then I'm going to run you guys through the changes. So let's get behind the computer. So what you need to do is you need to go to Google, fill in Darktable 3.0, hit enter. And then you see a Darktable 3.0.0 RC0 released. Let's click that one. And then it takes you to the site of Darktable itself. And it shows you where you can find the GitHub release. So if you click this link, it'll take you to GitHub and it'll show you guys what has changed in this version. So I'm not going to show you guys right now, I'll show you in a minute. First, what we need to do is we need to scroll down, and then here are the versions that you can download. I'm on Windows, so I've downloaded Darktable 3.0.0 RC0 Win64. And once you've done that, just install it. What I made sure is that I've installed it on a separate disk. So I've put it on the D drive. That way I've got both versions. I've got the 2.7 version and I've got the 3.0 version. So if there's any bugs or something goes wrong, I can always go back to the 2.7 version. And once you've done that, come back to this video and let me show you guys what has happened. So I'm going to grab my phone because that's the most easiest way for me to do it. And I'm going to open up the site, the GitHub one. And now I'm going to take you through the changes. So the first big one is that there's a full rework of the GUI, GTK, CSS. That's like a coding, and it basically means that Darktable now comes with different themes. So I'm going to take you guys into Darktable and show you guys the different themes. I already opened up a photo. Before I take you guys to the different themes, let me show you guys there's a bug in this. Usually what you do is you go to the original and then you compress the history stack. But then all of a sudden that doesn't work. I don't know why that is, but I figured out that if you click the original and then you just deactivate the orientation module, everything above it will be gone. So now I'm going to activate it back up and now we can start from scratch. Hopefully someone will see this and can tell me what's wrong, but I haven't figured it out. So what we're going to do is we're going to the settings, show global preferences. And once that's open, you now see a theme over here. And mine is set to Darktable, but I'll run you guys through the differences. So we've got the Darktable Elegant Dark. So let me click it. So this is how the Darktable Elegant Dark looks like. And now let me put it on darker. So now it's even more dark, obviously. I'm going to show you guys the Elegant Gray. It's very bright, it's very light. I'm not quite sure if I like this. I do like how the text comes out, but let's change it to the Darktable Icons Dark. And let's go to the darker. So once again, it's more dark, obviously. I like how this looks. It's very quiet to my eyes. I'm going to show you guys the icons gray. And I'm going to show you guys the one that I just had a minute ago. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it to Darktable Icons Darker because that's what I like. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit close. And it also says that the color picker on the tone curve and on the color zones and the fill light now allows you to select an area. So let me show you guys. We're going to find the tone curve because that's another thing you can do. You can fill in the module over here. I'm going to activate it. I'm going to open it. I'm going to keep it as is. But you see a color picker over here. If I click it, now it says that here's a point. So now you can see on the tone curve where this point is at pixel wise. So this is over here. And the sky is way over here. But what you can do as well is hit the control and then click the color picker, and now it'll allow you to select an area. And you see that these pixels that are over here are now inside this area in the tone curve module. And I think this is absolutely amazing because that way you can very precisely edit your photos. So let's say I want to keep everything as is over here. Now I'm going to drag this point up and everything else as well. You see that everything that contains pixels in this area, so brightness wise, is now being changed and everything else is staying the same. I can pull this back actually to make sure that it really stays the same. There we go. So now let me reset that. And now there's also a undo option for, I'm just going to read everything. In the light table for tags, color labels, rating, metadata, deleted history stack, pasted history stack, and applied style. So basically Once you've done an edit to an image and you were like, oh, I did something wrong, you could have hit Ctrl Z, and now you can do that with those options as well. Another thing that has changed, that inside the light table menu there's a timeline view as well, and as you can see, you can now switch between colors as well, stars, and this was an option that was already there, but you can increase the tiles that you'll see, so either 4 or 3 or like 8 on a row, that is. So let me put it back to 3 again. And what it does as well is that if you click one of these, or basically move your mouse on top of one of these, it shows you guys that these two are connected. So this is the JPEG and this is the RAW one. And they did a quite extensive rewrite of the light table as well to make sure that the overall performance is improved drastically. So that means that the film strip had a big rewrite as well for the same reasons. And now you can use the light table on 4K and 5K monitors. I'm using mine on a 4K monitor from LG, so I'm pretty happy with those changes. There's another new raster mask support. It's a copy of the parametric mask, which is stable during the whole pixel pipe. And another neat feature is that you can reorder your modules. So let's go to Darkroom. Let's go to the favorites. Now let's say I want to rearrange one of those. All I got to do right now is hit the Control, hit the Shift, and then just drag it. I can drag it upwards, I can drag it downwards. So let's just say I wanted to have it over here. I'm going to release it, and now you see that it's been brought up top over here. So that's another great thing, because that way you can really personalize the favorites module. And what you need to know is that this is not a GUI reordering, but a pixel pipe reordering. So if you're not familiar with pixel pipe order and the actual quality that could result from changing the default, just don't even bother changing it, just keep everything as is. The color zones module now also displays an histogram based on the select by channel, and displays the selected range if the color picker is in area mode. It acts now like the tone curve but horizontal, has 2 edit modes, edit by area, which is the former one, and if not, check nodes can be edited like in the tone curve. Delete only works by right click when not in edit area mode. So let's go to the color zones and let's activate it and let's open it. So for those of you who are already familiar with Darktable 2.7, this is the new color zones module. It's got a histogram which is inside, so it shows you that there's a lot of brightness in the blue pixels, which is obvious because the sky is still very blue, even though it was dawn at the time that I shot this image. I think it comes very in handy when you just want to edit a certain area in an image. So let me drag this one down, and now I've added saturation into the blues. And let's say I want to desaturate the greens. Let me put a point over here, a point over there, and let me just drag this one down all the way to here. And now you'll see that the greens are starting to become more desaturated than they were before. Let me show you guys before and after. So I'm going to click the symbol. Now the color zones is turned off, and if I switch it on, this is the end result after I've applied these changes. So that's another great thing in Darktable if you ask me in the changes. And another thing that you can do is, let me reset that one. So I'm going to click the symbol, reset parameters, is hit the Control, click this one, and now we can select an area. Now let's say I want to select this area. It'll show you that the pixels from this area are in this area over here. So if you want to change the pixels over here, you have to make sure that you focus on this area over here. I think this is absolutely amazing because it'll allow you to very precisely change pixels either in lightness, saturation, or the hue. So that's a huge improvement. And Darktable also has a new module. It's the Filmic RGB. It's a new module and it replaces the old Filmic module. Some of you might like using the Filmic module. I kind of had a couple of difficulties with it, but eventually it's a really good tool to have a starting point to edit your image even further. So let me show you guys the Filmic RGB. So let's just reset everything. So I'm going to click on the original, and what I'm going to do is I'm going back to my favorites. I'm going to scroll down and then deselect the orientation one. I'm going to activate it. There we go. And what I want to do is I want to find the Filmic RGB, and here it is. So let's open it, let's activate it. And now you see that, whoa, these changes are very big. It comes with presets as well. And for that you need to click this little symbol. And you've got 07 EV, 9 EV, 11 EV, 13 EV, 15 EV, and 70 EV. And this one is for the HDR. So it's very bright. So let me show you guys the different results. So this is very dark, but the sky stays intact. Now the 9 one, which is a little bit more brighter in the shadows and the midtones. And then the 11 one, which is even more brighter. And then the 13 one, and then the 15 one. And I already showed you guys the 17 one. Let me reset that. So I'm going to click reset. And let's see if I can change it manually. So the middle gray luminance, that will show you guys a difference in brightness of the image. So if I drag it to the left, the image becomes more bright. And if I drag it to the right, the image will become more dark. That is in the midtones as well. So let me double click it to reset it. There we go. And you can change the white relative exposure. So if I drag it to the right, the image becomes more bright. And if I drag it to the left, the image becomes more dark. And you can see it over here in the curve as well, because this is the shadow area, and then this is the midtone area, and this is the highlight area. So let me reset that by double clicking it. And the same goes for the black exposure. So if you drag it to the left, the blacks will be lifted. So that's how you can remember it. If you drag it to the left, they will be lifted. And if you drag it to the right, they will become more crushed. And then we've got the dynamics range scaling. So if I drag it to the right, you see that all three of those are starting to change. And if I drag it to the left as well, same happens. It says that symmetrically enlarge or shrink the computed dynamic range, useful to give a safety margin to extreme luminances. So I'm going to place it back. And you've got an auto tune level as well. For that you can use the color picker. Let's hit the control and click it. Now we've got an area. So let's say I want the output to be based on this area over here. So I'm going to make a selection. And now everything is very black. I'm not quite sure if that's what's supposed to happen, but let's reset it. Let's try it again one more time. And I'm going to place it on a dark area over here. And now it's very bright. I wouldn't bother with the auto tune levels. I would just reset everything, activate it, and then manually start to change the image to see what looks the best. So let me drag that to the left a little bit. And let me lift the blacks a little bit. And then change the dynamics range of the scaling, maybe to the right. So either way, you get the point. It's a nice and very powerful tool. Let's deactivate it, and now let's move on to the next. The Darktable comes with a new module. It's the tone equalizer module. I'm very excited about this one, so let me show you guys what it does. So this is the tone equalizer module. You've got a simple, advanced, and a masking option to edit the image. And what's pretty cool is that if we put it on simple, I'm not going to bother with these two because I can make an entire video about this. But if I put it on simple, let's say I want to target this specific pixel. It shows me that this pixel is located at -4.6. So that's between the 5 and the 4. So let's see what happens if I drag this to the left. It becomes more dark. And if I drag the 5 to the left, same goes. So you see that this is the area that we started to work with. So all the pixels that are in this range will be changed. So they will be either darkened, or if you drag it to the right, they will be lightened. So you're increasing exposure this way and you're decreasing exposure that way. And I think it's an incredible tool to really target a specific area of your image. Now there's many changes to the denoise profile module as well. Let me just read everything because I can't remember it by heart and I don't have a teleprompter. So many changes to denoise profile. The variant stabilization transform has changed, allowing a finer control of denoising. In particular, it is possible to better denoise the shadows and correct color cast that may occur in the shadows. This change mainly improves the denoising of high ISO images. You can read everything else yourself, but I think that's pretty huge. And it's also got a new module for handling 3D LUT transformation. So PNG, HALT, CLUT and cube files are now supported, which is pretty cool because if you go to the search module and you fill in LUT, you see that we've got a LUT 3D. So let's open that one. And now what we need to do is we need to browse for the LUT. So I'm going to click this symbol. So we've got a landscape like photo. So let's double click it. And I want to change the HALT CLUTs to all files because I've got cube files as well. And now let's say I want to add these. I'll show you guys how to get these LUTs in a different video, but let me double click it. And now this LUT is being applied, the landscape LUT. And if I click this symbol, which is uniformly, I can change the opacity of this LUT. So I can decrease it when moving it to the left, and I can increase the LUT or the strongness of the LUT by going to the right. So that's a great way of really creatively changing your image. Another thing that I wanted to show you guys is the gradient mask. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the exposure module. Let me activate that one. I'm going to click this symbol, draw on mask. And if I use the gradient filter, I'm going to click it. You now see that it has an arrow and it has a dark point. And everything in the dark point will be affected and everything in the arrow won't be affected. And that way it really shows you guys what will be changed. So if I drag this to the right, you see that the top of this image is becoming overexposed and the lower part of the image is staying the same. And you can change the masking or the feathering by hitting the shift and then scrolling the mouse wheel button away from you or scrolling it towards you to increase the feathering size. They've reworked the image information menu as well. It can now be set here on the top of the darkroom. And another thing that they've done is they've added a color picker to the split toning module. So let me activate that one. Let me open that one up. And now you see that we've got color pickers over here. So let's say I want to give the shadows a certain color. All I gotta do is click the color picker and I can just place it inside the image. And you see that this will change. So I'm going to place it on the roof. It'll be pinkish, kind of like. Let's place it on the car. It'll make it more blue-like because the entire image has a blue cast due to the fact that it was shot at dawn. Let me put it on the trees. So now it's more green. So greens are now being introduced into the shadows. And that's pretty cool because that way you can really give it a specific type of color, especially if the color is already inside of your image. And that's not the only module they've added a color picker to. So be sure to check out the entire release note if you want to know which modules have color pickers as well. And one of the changes I'm very excited about is the basic adjustments module, because that really allows you to change your raw image into something basic that you can use to really make something creative out of it. So let me take you guys into the Darktable again and let me show you guys how that works. So what we're going to do is I'm going to history, I'm going to click on the orientation layer and let's go to the basic adjustments. I'm going to open that one up, I'm going to activate it. So everything above it is now gone. And it'll allow you to change the black level, which is over here. It'll allow you to change the exposure to the entire image. So here I'm increasing it, and if I drag it to the left, I'm decreasing it. It also allows you to compress the highlights, to preserve the highlights basically. So in this image, I can drag it all the way to the right. It allows you to change the contrast. Dragging it to the left means that the contrast will be decreased. If I drag it to the right, it means that the contrast will be increased. You can change the middle gray point, and as I said, if you move it to the left, the image becomes more light, and if you move it to the right, the image becomes more dark. You can change the brightness as well by going to the right to increase it, going to the left to decrease it. So let me increase it a little bit to show you guys the last one, which is the saturation one. So if I drag this to the right, you see that now the colors are really starting to become more vibrant. And if you drag it to the left, that means that you're desaturating the image. And because this looks horrible, let me go back to the original. And Darktable now is the option to show a second darkroom image window as well. And that will display the edited image on a separate window. So it'll basically enlarge this and enlarge this on a second window. And when you zoom in into the image by scrolling the mouse wheel button away from you, you can drag it to the right and you can drag it to the left as well to make sure that you can look at all kinds of things. I see some chromatic aberrations over here. So let's see if we can remove that. Chromatic aberrations. Let me open that one up. Let me activate it. Yep. And now the purple fringes are gone. So that's a little bonus for you guys, so you can get rid of that one. So besides changing a lot of modules, they also made a lot of bug fixes. I advise you guys to just read the list, and that way you know that what has been changed in comparison to the previous version of Darktable. And besides all that, they've increased bass support, white presets, noise profiles. And before I forget, Darktable 3.0 now has an RGB levels and an RGB curves as well. Let me show you guys. So if you go to RGB levels, you see that we've got a levels module. Let me activate that. And if I move this to the right, you see that the image becomes more dark. And if I move the midtones to the left, it becomes more bright. Let me zoom out for you guys, fit the screen. And the same goes for the highlights as well. If I move this to the left, the image becomes a little bit more light. And if I move it to the right, the image shifts more into the dark. And not only that, because this is with link channels, you can now place it on independent channels. So what this does is it drags handles to set black, gray and white points, and it operates on the L channel. So let's move it to the left. Watch what happens. Now there's more red, and if I move it to the right, there will be less red and blues will be introduced into the midtones. And the same goes for the greens. If I move this to the right, magenta will be added, and if I move it to the left, green will be added. Now there's another way how you can do this, so let me reset this one and let's go to the RGB curve module. Let me open that one up, let me activate it. This allows you to make a shift, so let's say we're going to brighten up the midtones, we're going to darken it, so to darken the pixels. But what we can do as well, if I reset it, I can put it on independent channels, and now I can target the red, greens and blues separately. So let's say I want to increase some blues in the shadows, I drag this up. And if I want to decrease it and introduce yellows, I'm dragging it down. Same goes for the highlights. So if I drag it down, the highlights become more yellow. And if I drag the midtones down, the midtones become yellow as well. So I can counteract this by dragging these up. So now we've got a color shift which has some yellows in the highlights, some blues in the midtones and some yellows in the shadows, because we have dropped the blues downwards a little bit. And those are the changes from 2.6 to 3.0. I hope you guys like it. This was a quick overview. Let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think is the absolute best change that Darktable 3.0 is bringing with it? I would love to hear guys' thoughts, and for this week there's only one more thing left for me to say, which is make love to the like button. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Hit that bell button to be the first to be notified when I drop in a video. And until next time, doei!